Alright guys, what is going on? Welcome to another special News 6 o'clock p.m. type update edition of the Full Press Saints podcast. Myself here, Alec, running the show per usual. Dave is with me also, but today we have a very special guest. And when I say special, I mean the highest regards of all Saints media and insiders. I'll introduce him in just a moment. You guys don't forget to follow us on Twitter at SaintsFPC. And to bring in, or to introduce our special guest, I'll let him do it himself. Special guest number one, please take it away, good sir.
Well, what's going on, guys? It's Chris Rosvoglou at Rosvoglou Report. You guys know me most as, I guess I would say, from Sports Overtime. But happy to come on, happy to talk Saints. We got a lot of crazy stuff that happened this week in the NFL world, of course. So I'm just thrilled, and I've always been a big fan of you guys on Twitter. You guys have always been so nice and respectful to me. So I'm always happy to chop it up with you guys.
Hey, that's what we're here for, right, Dayton? We're getting recognition,
Absolutely.
Dayton.
And for some of you listening to, you might remember Chris, if you've been on Saints Twitter for a long time. From correct me if I've got the name wrong, but Who Dat in NYC was was an old show, which that's how long I've known you on the app. So come a long way since then. It's awesome stuff. Glad to have you on.
Absolutely, that's the major throwback of throwbacks. I
Yes.
vividly remember 2016 is when I started that, and
Yep.
I was maybe 18, 19 at the time, and I had my best friend from middle school, who, funny enough, is I'm now dating. She made all that for me. Like, she made the picture and all that, because I had no clue. It was out of my element. But I guess it just goes to say, if you got something you're passionate about and you want to talk about, pursue it. That's my little spiel for you guys. But I appreciate the little Who Dat in NYC shout out.
Hey, that's how you know we're real ones. We go back way back. But really quick, Chris, before we get into that, I just want to give you and Dana a shout out, dude. I don't know how in the hell you guys deal with snow and cold weather. Because let me tell you, down here in Texas, last week when the snow came, we stopped doing what we were doing. Like, life stopped. We stocked up the stores.
Yeah.
Like, I just stayed here and did absolutely nothing for a week. So, salute to you guys for going through it in the north, because God knows what happens down here.
Yeah, I love the snow.
What here's my question, Alec, I have for you guys. Like, what is the reasoning? Because I was so concerned and alarmed seeing the pictures. What's the reasoning for why Texas was unable to handle it? Is it just like, I'm being, because when I watched it, I was so confused. And I guess this is me just being, ignorant to the situation, because I'm from New York and we got 2 feet of snow 2 weeks ago and it was no big deal. But is it a structure system? What's the reason for that?
Not to get too political, because I tried not to sway one way or the other, because I just really, honestly, I just don't care about politics like that. But I'll just say right now, the state government really just screwed us over. I'm going to be real with you.
Okay.
Because I believe, if I'm right, I was too young to remember really, but I know when the Super Bowl was here in 2011, when the Packers Steelers were here, we had the big snowstorm again come through. And then they really weren't prepared for the magnitude of the event. So we're not prepared for these kinds of things. And ultimately, Mother Nature really just kicked our behinds.
And Texas is like its own country, too. So
and also
a lot of working parts.
Also, I just found out we're not on the national power grid like every other state. We have our own.
Oh.
So, so when that went to crap, everybody here lost power and water and heat. So it's just a big, massive, colossal failure on the government. So thank you for coming to my 2200 Texas government class, guys.
There you go. Love it.
So, all in all, that's what happened. It just was a whole thing we were not prepared for. Because, you just said you got 2 feet of snow, right? We had 6 inches. And the whole state shut down. So, we're just not accustomed to these. It's like, you guys seen Avengers Infinity War?
Of course.
So, when Cap and all them go to Wakanda for the first time, and Bruce asks, should we bow? And Rhodey goes, he's the king, of course he does. So then Bruce bows, and tells us, we do not do that around here. You see, we don't do that around here. We don't do the snow.
Yeah. We don't do the snow.
It's not our thing at all. But, so Chris, back on football-related topics here. Thank you so much for coming on with us, man. So let's dive right into it. First of all, I kind of want to talk to you about a little bit about Sports Overtime. You and Nate have really kind of blown up the whole Saints podcast / infrastructure of, you guys are doing this own thing. You guys had great guests. You had Morissette on a few weeks ago. You had Michael Burton, Justin Hardy, just this past one you guys recorded and knocked it out. So if you could just kind of go into how Nader reached out to you to come on and do it, and just really how you guys have gone from where you are then to now, like just the success you guys have had.
Yeah, absolutely. So before that, Nader was obviously doing the show with Brian, who I think is probably to this day still one of the most entertaining people on Saints Twitter. I mean, Brian just calls it. He says what he wants to say, and he calls it the way it is, and it's awesome just to see. But I think Brian was moving on with his trucking company at the time, and Nader goes, hey, if Brian's not going to do this, I'm going to need someone to fill in. And I know you and Brian at least, talked to each other before. I have Brian on my podcast all the time, so he was cool with it. And he kind of just reached out to me through there. I've always been somewhat close in terms of like social media friends with Nader because I've always reached out to him about the work he does with the homeless. I'm always, impressed by what he does there. And he'll put out some great Saints tweets from time to time. So we've always interacted through that. I remember I had him on when the Clowney craze was the talk of Saints Twitter. So he kind of just reached out through there. I was excited to do it. And then from there on out, we're just trying to pull our resources together and get these interviews on and really just get the interviews on for the Saints fans. I think this is going to be a really interesting offseason. And that's why a lot of people say, well, why are you bringing on the certain players you have? Morstead, a lot of people wondering, is he a cap casualty? What's going on there? Burden and Hardy are both free agents. And while I know the talk's going to be about Trey and Marcus, Burden and Hardy are important players. Those are unsung heroes to a team that you might want to bring back. So you want these guys on, talk to them. Great guys also, I might add. So it's just really for the Who Dat Nation. It's that simple. We want to put that out there and people enjoy it. Nothing more to it, but I'm really enjoying the time spent there.
Yeah, great stuff you guys are doing over there at Sports Overtime. Great stuff you guys are doing over there. And of course, on top of, just the Saints work, the work you guys do for the homeless, down there in New Orleans, Later takes care of those guys pretty good. So just kudos to you guys. Nothing but respect for what y'all do over there. And I think we're just hoping to kind of emulate and or, at least get a slice of what you guys do. So, again, super excited for you guys and what y'all are doing. So now let's shift over to what happened today. Saints Twitter, NFL Twitter, Seahawk Twitter, whatever team you want to use, put the word Twitter behind it. They were in shambles today, of course, with the Russell Wilson news breaking. And, of course, Russell Wilson happened to list the Saints as one of his 4 teams, the other 3 being the Cowboys, the Bears, and the Raiders. So, Chris, Dayton, as we know, Saints Twitter was sitting in shambles the moment this tweet came out. And we know how it is. It's like a war zone on Saints Twitter. You gotta get down low, and you gotta take your hits where they come. So, what were your thoughts on this news breaking out today? And realistically, is it possible to get Russell Wilson on this roster?
I'll just say real quick. Luckily, this is most of Saints Twitter, even though it has kind of just blown up. Most Saints Twitter, I think, is definitely in agreement, as opposed with a lot of other topics we've had this offseason involving quarterbacks as to if they want them on the team. I think it's a consensus. Yes, do anything to get Russell Wilson on this team, whatever you have to do. Besides, I think, the untouchables, Michael Thomas, Alvin Kamara, even though sports media people like Colin Cowherd have kind of offered that as a possibility. I don't see the Saints trading either 2 of those guys, but if there's any other way you can pull that off without including either 2 of those guys, why not try to get Russell Wilson? He's 33, his cap hit overall is $32 million for this year, but whatever team ends up trading for him will only get a $19 million cap hit. And for a guy of Russell Wilson's stature, I think that is an absolute steal. But the Saints still have their own cap situation to deal with. And it's definitely possible still. We know what Mickey Loomis can do. There haven't even been that many restructures going on with the Saints cap situation quite yet. And once that gets going, you'll start to see that cap room really start to boom, and that could make way for possibility. But my guess overall, just prematurely, by the time the 2021 season kicks off, Russell Wilson will be a Seattle Seahawk. But this is very interesting stuff. You don't see this many prolific quarterbacks either wanting to be traded, possibly being traded, or period being traded. We saw the Stafford Goff trade and then the Carson Wentz trade. That all happens in the same offseason, and Deshaun Watson, Russell Wilson now definitely on the outside. So it's a very interesting situation. Saints got to do anything they can to get Russell Wilson if that's the situation out of Seattle. So.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think the funny thing is Twitter loves to bring up the Saints cap issue, and I think the cap issue, funny enough, is the least of the Saints' problems when it comes to getting Russell Wilson. It's just the fact that I don't think they can put together the best trade package, not because they don't have the assets in terms of players. They don't have the assets in terms of picks because they're picking at 28. That's like the downside to picking being so great. You're going to pick towards the bottom of the first round. Now, when I look at the list, because it was Bears, Cowboys, Raiders, Saints, I think the only team the Saints really would compete with is the Raiders for Russell Wilson if he got traded to a team that he wanted. And the reason I say that is the Cowboys can get mentioned. I think the Cowboys have to figure out this Dak situation before they could start flirting with other quarterbacks. I just don't see how that happens. As for the Bears, if you want to leave the Seahawks because you want better offensive line protection, you want better play calling, I don't see how the Bears fix either problem. I think it's actually worse than the current situation you're in. So it brings me to the Raiders, where I don't think the Raiders are anything great right now, but the Raiders do have a better pick than the Saints. But more importantly, the Raiders can give the Seahawks a ready-to-play right now quarterback in Derek Carr. Now, obviously, Wilson is heads and shoulders better than Derek Carr, but if you gave Derek Carr and a bunch of picks to the Seahawks, it's not the worst thing in the world. It keeps Seattle somewhat competitive. Now, they're not a playoff team without Wilson, in my opinion, but that's why I think the Raiders are a threat. But here's what I'll say about this. Before today, if you told me Russell Wilson was going to get traded, I was going to tell you maybe after the 2021 season. Now I legit feel like it's 50-50. Like when something comes out that, hey, I don't want to get traded, but if you're going to trade me, here's 4 teams I'd love to play for. It's like you wouldn't be thinking about that unless, I don't think to myself, hey, here's 4 jobs I would love to work for right now if I'm happy with my current job. No, you're happy with your current job. So I think it's an issue, and I think the offensive line thing that everyone loves to talk about is a cover-up for the main issue in Seattle. I think that Pete Carroll wants to run a 90s styles offense with a guy who is the perfect quarterback for today's generation of football, and that's the main issue. So I think the Saints would be the perfect fit with Sean Payton, with him succeeding a guy who he loves in Drew Brees. He idolizes him, so I think that would be a seamless transition. And I think the funny thing is, what everyone asked me, what should the Saints trade for him, and what would it be like? My guess would be at least 2 first-round picks, Marshawn Lattimore, and then maybe another player that's maybe a lower-level guy that Seattle can try and figure out. I don't know, like a Davenport or something like that. But I think that if the Saints are going to trade a big player for Russell Wilson, it's Marshawn Lattimore, because Michael Thomas makes no sense. They got Metcalf, they got Lockett. Kamara makes no sense because that's not going to fix anything for them. And the Saints aren't going to trade AK. I don't even bother that. And then people said, well, what about Ramczyk? The man said he wants to get protected, so I think you're going to keep Armstead and Ramczyk along for a while. So I would say Lattimore, multiple first-round picks, that's what they would offer, but I don't know if it gets it done because, again, you're picking at 28.
Yeah, they can have Pete, too, if they want offensive line help.
Oh, I'll pack his bags if he wants.
Oh, absolutely. There you go. Absolutely.
And I'll be really quick to kind of just piggyback off of what you guys are saying. I agree with Chris. If you told me as early as yesterday that Russ was going to get traded, I would have told you, not right now, but depending on how this year goes in Seattle, maybe. But look, if you guys have read the story on The Athletic, they did a real good job putting that piece together. And man, it just shows you how quickly it turned in Seattle. And the thing with Seattle is, to me, and tell me if I'm wrong here, guys, but I think outside of Russell Wilson, Bobby Wagner, and the Legion of Boom players, Sherman, Chancellor, and Earl Thomas, Seattle is not a good place for drafting players. John Snyder and Pete Carroll have done an absolute horrible job drafting players, and they really reach for guys who really aren't day one players, if in my opinion. So, go to New Orleans with Mickey Loomis, Sean Payton. They're probably 2 of the best. This is probably the best head coach GM duo in the NFL as far as being on the same page and really putting together the best possible situation for their players. I think I kind of want to get your guys' opinion on this. If I had to put together a package, right? I'm throwing the bag for Russell Wilson. I will give up gladly. Give me 4. I'll do 4 ones. Taysom Hill, Andrews Pete to Seattle. I'll throw in Davenport too. Screw that. I'll throw in Davenport.
That's like the trade for Paul George.
Hey,
that's. I mean,
I play to win.
Wilson is worth it. Oh, for sure. Sure.
It's like what is it? Uncut Gems with Adam Sandler.
There you go.
This is how I win.
There you go.
So
sure.
I will do that for Russ.
That's heavy, but
give me Dunlap in return, and we're good.
Okay.
I'm throwing the bag. I don't care.
I mean, if that's what it takes, I don't know. I don't know if Peyton wants to give up Taysom Hill though. He's got a crush on him.
Yeah, let's not. Yeah, but hey, if Russ is there, hey, we don't need to take Drew off the field. We don't have to take him on the field every 3 plays when Russ gets in a rhythm. You know what I mean?
That's what you think. That's what you think, man. It's whatever Sean Payton thinks, though. Hey. He really, really likes Taysom Hill, so I don't know. Why. But I agree with you overall, but yeah, we'll see. I mean, what a crazy situation, though. And that's the thing. I know we were saying, like, right before the podcast, though, I guess this is a little muddled. He never actually officially requested a trade at all. But this is how big the news is, just because the 4, you named 4 teams, like Chris said. I mean, that's... how much more obvious can you get? Like, without officially requesting a trade, you name 4 teams that you want to go to. Like
his camp has done his homework on these 4 teams.
Yes, exactly.
So
4 interesting teams, by the way, to choose. But I mean, their thought process is probably bigger city, somewhat. Somewhere that has offensive-minded coach.
It's the cities
experience.
It's the cities where Sierra can perform too.
There you go. Right. Yep.
Oh man, but that's the whole thing. We'll get into that as more news comes along, but we'll see what happens. So now let's shift over to a little free agency talk here, Chris. So I have a fun little game I'm going to play. A quick question: do you know Russian at all?
I do not.
Okay, cool, perfect. We're going to play a game here called Da or Na. The simple Russian words for yes or no.
I had no idea.
Yeah. They're just they're 2 simple words. So what we'll do is we'll run through some Saints free agents that if they could bring back, they would. Just give me a quick da or na. And the accent is up to you. I won't make you do the accent because then people might get the wrong idea. We're not about that here. So, having said that, start off with the first big name, Marcus Williams.
Ooh. That's pretty...
It's tough.
Now... That one, honestly, I don't know if it's going to happen, but I can definitively tell you I am full on duh for that one. That's just, I'm in on that one.
Definitely, yeah. It's definitely, for sure. But yeah, it's going to be, I mean, depends on what he commands. And it's tough because the safety market here in the draft in 2021 is kind of, it's not really top heavy. It's not too deep, but it is rich in talent in the mid rounds. And, the Saints could definitely dip in the 2nd or 3rd round to get a quality safety, possibly starting day 1. But that all depends on them. But if they want to shell out money for Marcus Williams, I'm all for it. But it's going to be tough. It could be, I don't know. But definitely, I want back. I want him back.
I agree, comrades. That is resounding duh.
There we go.
So, assuming we bring back Marcus Williams, that takes a big chunk of our cap.
Yes.
Trey Hendrickson. It's a doll for me.
Yeah, I mean, but damn. You didn't want it to come to this situation. That's what you want Marcus Davenport to have already been very established in a solid DN, but Trey Hendrickson is now the one who is the established solid DN. Granted, he only had the one huge year. We had great production, but still, I mean, he's going to be going into his prime if he's not already in his prime, and he's got a couple years, of course, after that. So, I mean, it's going to be tough because he's going to get a lot of looks because of the recency bias with his monster season he just had. But, man, I really wish Davenport had worked out a little better to this point because, I don't know, it just wouldn't have put so much stress on the Saints now to kind of retain him. So, I mean, yes, for sure, I want him, but, yeah, 2 firsts. Yeah.
2 firsts on the streets, what we call him around here.
There you go.
Chris, I assume duh on Trey, right?
Oh, man. Half of Saints Twitter is going to come for me on this one. But I'm actually going with nah for this one. And I'll tell you why. I think Trey's awesome. I've spoken to him a couple times. He is that when, there's some players that are just all about football and like nothing else matters. And he's one of those dudes. I have a couple concerns. First off, I do think Trey is good. I don't know if he's 13.5 sacks good, but he's definitely better than his usual 3 sacks. He's somewhere in the middle. I'll say he's like an 8 sack per season type guy. Do you want to pay him, and then you realize that, hey, he doesn't really defend the run well at all? Unfortunately, he does get injured quite often. Not badly injured, but injured enough where there's 2 to 3 week spurts where you don't have him.
That's the killer.
That is, and then the problem is his best season just happened in a contract year. So the reason I say this is, in a perfect world, give me Trey back, give me Marcus back. But I got to pick against one of them. he's the one I'm going to pick against because Marcus has been a good player throughout his career in New Orleans. Now, I know some moments are better than others. I know, but he's always been a solid player. Trey was okay, decent, and then now he popped. And he popped at the right time because he's going to get paid. And I just think, that a Jacksonville or a Giants team or a Jets team, they're going to throw $14 million a year at him. And I'm probably going to pass when that happens. But look, perfect world, give me both. But I'm going to be a realist here. So I'm going to say I'll go on Trey Hendrickson.
All righty, we're on the same page then. This will be the interesting one, I think. Sheldon Rankins. He's a toughie because it's hard because he's been injured so much the last couple of years. I feel like Rank would almost maybe consider taking a 1 year prove it type deal.
He definitely could for sure. And I mean, the Saints have definitely established that David Onyemata, great.
They made that
decision
decision last year.
He's their guy there. You also get production out of Shai Tuttle, and we've mentioned Malcolm Brown before too. But it's just so odd because it depends on what Rankins. I want him back. It's gonna have to be a year deal. He's another guy who's dealt with injuries like Hendrickson has. If the Saints don't get Rankins back, I would love for them to definitely maybe try to trade up for somebody like Christian Barmore in the draft, because then that solves all your problems up front right away there, whether you get Rankins or not. But I would say if I had to choose between those three, because the cap situation is going to be so tight, unless Rankins is super, super cheap, give me Williams over both Hendrickson and Rankins. Or, give me Marcus Williams over both of those guys. But it's tough.
Yeah, I'm actually going to go not for this one as well. And it's not that I don't want Sheldon back. It's that I'm trying to read the tea leaves here, and the Saints have interviewed with a lot of defensive tackles over the last couple of weeks. And, when I keep asking, and I met with a couple of them through interviews for work and asked them about it, and they keep saying, they love the Saints when they met with them, and there's a good vision there. And I think the other thing that plays a factor, even if the Saints don't draft a defensive tackle, last 2 years, Malcolm Roach, Shai Tuttle, undrafted rookie free agents, both played decent roles for the Saints in their rookie years, and you just have to think that the Saints have a good eye for that position. You know what you got in Onyemata. I think the more interesting thing is what happens with Malcolm Brown, because he might be a cap casualty, but with Sheldon Rankins, he's missed 10 games over the last 2 seasons, so he's missed about a third of the time on the field, and it just stinks because in 2018, when everything was clicking for the Saints, I thought we saw what Rankins could be, which is a really talented interior rusher at the defensive tackle position. But, man, injuries are catching up. He had the Achilles, then he had the ankle. It's just, I kind of question where he's at physically. I know he said he's got his burst back, but he's not going to tell you that he lost any burst before free agency. That would be idiotic. So I'm going to pass on Sheldon. I would love him back for a 1 year incentivized deal, and I think that is a possibility. But if it's nothing other than that, I'll pass.
I do love the Sheldon shimmy. I wouldn't want to see that go for sure. And, I always forget about Malcolm Roach, of course, coming out last year, having some great production. So,
Stud.
I mean, either way, I think the Saints are in okay shape at D-tackle, whether they get him back or not. So,
I agree 100% with you guys. I am also a nah for Sheldon Rankins. I feel like we have too much interior talent. And as you mentioned, Chris, the Saints have done a lot of research on these later round interior guys, so I feel like that certainly is going to be a move come days 2 and 3 of the draft, so we'll see what happens. Up next, a pretty controversial Saint. I'll tell you right now, for me, it's a resounding nah. PJ Williams.
I'll let Chris go first on this one.
Oh, my gosh. This is a complicated one because, the emotional side of me is nah. But he's versatile. He is a hell of a tackler. And I don't think he's going to cost much. So I'll go da, which will probably annoy people. But, if you lose Marcus Williams, you're going to want a veteran DB that could maybe sometimes play free safety, and he is that. So I'm going to say yes, or da, I should say. He's only 28, and I just don't think he's going to cost much. He knows the system. He'll fool us in camp and look impressive, and we're all going to say it's his breakout year, and it won't be, but I'll take PJ back.
Yeah. I think, and especially Jack Rabbit is probably going to be a cap casualty, too. He saves us too much. It's $7 million, but he saves us enough cap, I think, to make that move makes sense, especially because the Saints have the possibility, I think, and we'll talk about this in a little bit too, the amount of cornerbacks that they've interviewed already too. I think that they're definitely going to be looking there. But yeah, I'd love to get PJ back, move him around, put him in the free safety position, or again, he's versatile. He can work in the slot too, even though he's he's shown struggles, definitely, but yeah, I wouldn't mind, especially because he will probably be very, very cheap, so I'll take him back. But
struggles. I think you meant to say absolutely, as the kids say on the streets, absolutely booty cheeks.
Hey, we're not talking about Ken Crawley here, all right? We're talking PJ.
Hey, we're not here for that Ken Crawley slander,
yes.
really, Dayton.
Oh,
so, I mean, my thing with PJ is, look, he is great within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage, but after that, he's a liability. And I think, to me, especially if the Saints do cut Janoris Jenkins, they brought back Keith Washington Jr., the guy they were high on last year going into camp. They have Patrick Robinson, who played some outside corner, but I feel like to me, outside corner is going to be the biggest position of need as far as defense goes, besides linebacker. But I gotta say, nah. I mean, if I want to put a DB in the box and have him tackle people, and I have Chauncey Gardner-Johnson for that purpose.
There you go.
And he's a much better athlete than PJ Williams. He's like PJ's a slightly more athletic Roman Harper, and that's not saying a whole lot. Because we know how
gray-haired Roman Harper.
Yeah, you mean Barack Obama? That's what they called him.
Gray-haired 28-year-old Roman Harper.
So I'm a nah. Alex Anzalone. Ugh.
I mean, before the playoffs, I probably would have said yeah. And I mean, it all depends on what happens with Quan Alexander, right? Whether they keep him or cut him, because he also saves a lot of cap space if they cut him and he's coming off a really, really bad injury that happened at the end of the year. So who knows if he'll even be able to play in 2021. But Anzalone got pushed around a lot in the playoffs, especially against Tampa Bay. They had his number for sure. And I would love the Saints to use their first-round draft pick on a linebacker, because I think that there are a lot of good options that will be sitting there at 28. But they also have a guy like Zach Bond. His development is still TBD. So they have a lot of options if they don't get Anzalone. But I don't think Anzalone will cost that much. So if he's cheap, I guess bring him back for depth. And I really like his coverage skills. But his physicality is just... He was getting beat at the point of attack a lot during the playoffs, and you kind of see towards the end of the season too. So he also didn't play as many snaps as I think he played less snaps in the 2020 season than in 2019. I can't remember which season it was that he played more snaps in. But yeah, I mean, if he's super cheap, bring him back. If not, I would love the Saints to draft and then roll the dice with Zach Bond in the first round draft pick. So.
Yeah, I'm going to go nah for this one, and it's just pretty simple for me. I watched him get routed up by Leonard Fournette way too many times in that playoff game, and it was like, and Fournette was awesome in the playoffs. Like, I do want to say that, but...
You mean playoff Lenny.
Yeah, playoff Lenny, and now it's Lombardi Lenny. He's been great, and I got to give him his props, but you rather get trucked by Leonard Fournette than him, like, shake you out of your cleats, because that's a you problem, and
yep.
I think Anzalone, on top of it, like, He's really not that durable, and it's been that way since Florida. And the funny thing was, when I think at the time, I forgot who his teammate was. It might have been Gerard Davis coming out of college, but everyone was so hyped about his film. And when I would watch him, I'm like, wait, the linebacker next to Anzalone, he actually looks even better. And I thought if he could get healthy, he'd have a decent NFL career. And he showed flashes in 2018, and it just never materialized since. So I'm going to go no. But I've kind of accepted that the Saints just struggle to draft that linebacker spot. I don't know when they're going to fix it. Don't know if they ever will. And if they don't sign for DeMario or trade for Quan, they don't fix that problem. So I'm going to go nah, and I am concerned about the future of this position.
Yeah, I agree 100% with you guys. Quan's a big question mark right now as far as his situation. He could be cut for all we know for cap purposes. I almost want to say just because our depth at linebacker is so bad, and I really don't know what they're going to do to fix it. Because Zach Bond, he's still a question. We really don't know how, with the COVID offseason, no training camp, no real on-field time to really learn how to change from a 3-4 outside linebacker to a 4-3 linebacker. I don't know if there's enough right now to fix that. So I'd say yes, just because I don't know who else is going to play linebacker next to DeMario Davis at this point. So yeah, yes, but not a very confident yes. Okay, last guy here, the big one. This one's going to be tricky, just because of our previous topic. Jameis, eat that dub. Crab stealing, Winston.
Crab stealing, man.
I went back in. I went back in time for that one.
that's the thing. Yes, yeah. If you don't end up trading for a quarterback, give me Jameis. And that will still give them the opportunity to possibly draft a quarterback. I mean, I don't know what is going to be this. This draft is exciting because I really don't know how it's going to fall after the first overall pick. I mean, who knows what's going to happen now? The closer we get, I'm sure the clearer the picture will get. Will a guy like Mac Jones be available later in the round? Probably not, but you don't know at this point. But even if he is, sign Jameis if he's cheap. But Jameis has been getting looks, apparently. Apparently a lot of teams are going to be interested in Jameis Winston, and rightfully so. He had a year to sit behind Drew Brees, great offense there in New Orleans. I'm sure he learned a lot. Even though he's coming off his most recent season was a 30 touchdown, 30 interception type season, he's still going to be a totally different quarterback in a different system, and he looked fairly impressive in his very short time with the Saints that he had. So, I say yes. If he's cheap, bring him back for sure. Even if he's not, sign him. I'm just afraid a team will outbid the Saints and get Jameis for them. But I'm all for Winston.
Yeah, so I am let me put that out there. It is yes. And here's my problem with Jameis Winston, the whole situation with the Saints. And I try to explain it on Twitter, but trying to explain to certain things on Twitter, it's just not worth it. I'm just waiting. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just because people are going to have their beliefs, and that's fine. And I do think at some level the Saints can fix Jameis Winston. He's only 27. I never thought he had a fair shot in Tampa Bay, and I said that so many times. Different coaches. The O-line was never good. He played through injuries, whatever. I don't want the Saints to settle for Jameis Winston. It's like there's a difference between going through all the options and then it's like, okay, Jameis. And I think that's why it's important right now that the Saints are talking to the Seahawks for Russell Wilson and seeing if that's possible. Because if you can't get Russell Wilson and you don't want to trade up in the draft because you have a win-now team, then hell yeah, let's ride with Jameis Winston for the 1 year. I think that's what I prefer. What I would hate is the Saints don't pick up the phone and call about Russell Wilson. They don't see what it costs to move up if they love a quarterback, and they say, hey, let's just ride with Jameis and Taysom, because I think that's a dangerous thing. But this is why I'm okay with Jameis coming back. He can't be worse than what he was in 2019. I have to throw that out there. He can't. And if he just plays mediocre football, the Saints are going to be fine. And the reason I say that is the Saints got a lot of mediocre quarterback play this last season, and they won 12 games. So what he can't do is turn over the football. And we saw Drew Brees had 3 picks in the playoff game. And when you turn over the football, regardless if you're Jameis or you're Drew Brees, you're going to lose the game. So can he cut it down to 15 picks? I'm thinking he can. Again, 15 picks is still a lot. It's about 1 a game. But if he throws, let's say, 28 touchdowns and 15 picks, that's mediocre quarterback play, or a little bit better than mediocre, and it would be enough for the Saints. I just don't want them to settle with Jameis and say, hey, we're going with him. But when you go through all your options, if this is the guy, then let's do it, because I think Jameis, 1 year, maybe 15 mil, I'd be okay with it.
Okay. Chris,
it's respectable, yeah.
Thank you for being the first guest on Da or Nah. Hopefully we do this again with other various topics. But having said that, folks, we'll take a quick break. Coming up next, we'll get into some possible Saints prospects and a little taste of NYC. Listen to Full Press Saints. Alrighty, guys, welcome back to the show here. Alec, Dayton, and Chris. So, really quick, before we get into some Saints prospects, Chris, I want to get your opinion on something really quick. Give me one word, no explanation, just I want one word, all right? One worded answer. Let's say next week you wake up. You find out Drew Brees' watch is officially over. Drew Brees says, let's run it back 1 more year. What is your one-worded answer on how you feel about the situation?
Can I curse? No, I'm not.
I mean, you can't. I got a rule against it. You can.
No. Let me see. Let me find a.
Fudge.
Honestly, it would just be meh. And here's the reason why I say that. If Breeze did come back, this godforsaken team would find a way to make the playoffs. They would.
With 13 games.
And everyone's going to convince themselves, Drew threw a pretty good 20-yard pass in Week 17. We're good. We're ready. Like I did this year. I thought he threw that pass against Kansas City to Emmanuel Sanders, and we all convinced ourselves, oh, my God, breaking his ribs was the best thing for him. And no. So here's the line that I try to find, because this is probably the most crazy topic I've ever seen in my life. there's a fine line between not wanting Drew Brees back and people just blaming Drew Brees for everything. It's like, pal, you didn't fail that test because Drew Brees. Like, you didn't study for the test, God damn it. Like, stop blaming your quarterback for everything. Like, I think he should retire. I think he is going to retire. There's no doubt in my mind he will. If he comes back, though, it's mad because I know the Saints will make the playoffs. I know there'll be some fun moments, and they'll have that one Monday night game where Drew turns back the clock and we convince ourselves we're going to get the ending we want, but it's going to end with some crazy thing, maybe a loss to Brady again, who knows, but meh. That's my response. Meh.
I like that answer. That's not what I was expecting. Yeah, but I like that. That's a good explanation. Yeah, so we're just going to move on now because that's a very controversial topic in the land of Saints Twitter, as we know. So then let's chat about some draft stuff, guys. I know, Chris, you talked to several prospects who are going to interview with the Saints. Dayton, I know you have a lot of guys you would like to see the Saints take at 28. So let's talk a little draft here, guys. What are we thinking at 28? What are some names you're thinking about? And yeah, so what are we thinking here?
I mean, 28 is going to be so interesting. I think Chris also has going to talk about somebody who the Saints might be interviewing here soon, or will be interviewing here soon, which will lead me to my question I'll get to in just a second. But my favorite two, I got two guys I really, really like at 28 right now after doing all this, because there's a lot of good prospects that I really hope fall to the Saints at 28, but most likely, J.C. Horn would be fantastic at 28. I think he's going to be picked in the top 20, 22, 23, anywhere around there. Saints want to trade up for him, go for it. Christian Barmore, too, I think he could possibly be a top 15 pick. I think he'll go in the top 20. That'd be awesome. Two guys I really, really like. One on offense, one on defense. One on offense, Rashad Bateman, wide receiver out of Minnesota. Talked about him in the last podcast episode. He would just be a fantastic, I think, he's almost a MT clone, if you will. I mean, he's just fantastic at finding open space, and I'm not saying he's as good as MT, but about the same body build. He's fantastic at finding open space in zones, being a cushion type receiver, possession guy, and that will be good for whatever quarterback the Saints end up rolling with next year. I really like Rashad Bateman, but my number one guy I really like, and I talk about him with Matthias Mead on Twitter in mind because we talk about him all the time, and that's his guy in the draft. JOK is what they call him. Jeremiah Owusu Koromoa, linebacker out of Notre Dame. He's fantastic. And you talk about Alex Anzalone possibly leaving the team. This guy would be not only great next to Demario Davis in that defense, he would also be a guy who could potentially fill some of the shoes and the voids that Demario Davis leaves. Hopefully he plays for another 5-6 seasons. But if he ends up retiring within a few years, JOK could be that kind of guy who kind of fills in the void. Great sideline to sideline speed. He's agile. He's one of the best coverage linebackers to come out of the draft in quite a long time, I'd say. I mean, he just attacks at the point. 6'1", 215 pounds, coming out of obviously a really, really good school as well. So I would love to go that direction. But I want to ask you, Chris, I think the direction the Saints need to go in this draft is obviously focus on defense, but that secondary is going to be really important to get some younger guys in, especially we don't know what's going to happen with Jack Rabbit. We don't know what's going to happen with Marshawn Lattimore. Hopefully he does get extended, or if he's used in a trade, that could open the void as well. But especially after interviewing guys like Thomas Graham out of Oregon and another guy I think that you mentioned right before the podcast, I really want the Saints to draft multiple cornerbacks and possibly even multiple, back-end guys like safeties or just athletes they can place in the field. Definitely you have people like Chauncey Gardner-Johnson and Malcolm Jenkins there to kind of play the box, but if you want to get some coverage guys, I think going multiple cornerbacks and a couple of free safeties if they don't go multiple cornerbacks would be a really good direction for them to go. How do you see that playing out in the draft? Because they have some mid-round picks that I think could be utilized really smartly to help the secondary out and get younger.
Oh, absolutely. And, you talk about the cornerback position. I think that, when you just see the amount of guys the Saints are interviewing in that position, it kind of tells you that whether it's a Lattimore trade, which I don't think that's really it. I think it's Janoris possibly getting cut and them needing a second corner. But there's guys out there. One I'll throw out there. I just spoke with him before we got on. It was Asante Samuel Jr. Funny enough, that is the son of Asante Samuel, who was on the Falcons and used to terrorize the Saints. So he's got a meeting scheduled March 3rd with the Saints. Look, with meetings, I try to tell everyone it could be something, it could be nothing. You take it with a grain of salt, but you try to just follow the pattern here. So that's a corner the Saints are looking at. He's a day 2 guy, so that's someone I'll have my eye on if the Saints go cornerback in day 2. That's someone I like. I like Greg Newsome from Northwestern. If they like a corner on day 2, he's a really talented kid.
Yes.
Now, for the first round, at first, I mean, you mentioned JOK. He's not falling to 28. But if he did, I would immediately run the card to the podium and get that pick in because he's a game changer. And when you watch Notre Dame and everyone tries to figure out, how they go undefeated through the regular season, it's guys like him. That's why they were undefeated. So having him, that would be great, but I don't know if it's realistic. So I look at a Zaven Collins. I look at a Nick Bolton. Collins I like a little bit more because I'm over the Saints taking the athletic guy, because I probably still have some PTSD from Stephon Anthony. And when the Saints drafted Stephon Anthony, I kid you not, I was telling my brother, I'm like, man, I want this Eric Kendricks guy from UCLA. And if the Saints took Kendricks, maybe he wasn't going to be as good. I don't know. The coaching staff wasn't that great at the time, but I would have preferred him to Stephon Anthony. So Collins, for me, I think from a technique standpoint, I like him better over Bolton. But Bolton, I think, is going to be an excellent player. But I'll surprise you guys. I want the Saints to go defensive end with their first-round pick, and I think they might go defensive end with their first-round pick. And the reason I say that is there's two guys, ironically enough, from the same school, Jalen Phillips and Greg Russo, who are going to be flirting around that 20 range. They're really talented players.
Which is crazy because before the season, Russo was going to be like a top 5 pick, and now you see him, he could be there at 28. It's incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. And I spoke with him in December. He was actually the first guy I got for my little draft series that I like to do every year. And first off, nicest kid in the world. I mean, the kid was phenomenal. We finished interviewing. He's asking me questions about where I think he's going to get drafted. It was just so funny. He's a nice kid. But forget about the personality. Put that aside for a sec. He's a playmaker. And I guess the downside to Greg would be that there's a little bit of a Davenport factor that he's a great athlete and you're just hoping it all clicks, but his production in college was way better and he was at a way better school. So when he leads the league in sacks at Miami, it's way more important than a smaller school like Davenport. As for Phillips, we saw what he can do. Like, he's another great player, and I think the Saints interviewing so many defensive linemen, and especially defensive ends and defensive tackles, I think they know that they're going to lose Trey Hendrickson. I think they know that they're going to lose either Rankins or Malcolm Brown. And I think they're going to try and replenish that position. So I would prefer, in an ideal world, the Saints go defensive end with that first-round pick, or corner, if J.C. Horn's there, or corner. And let's say they don't go corner in the first round, get a corner in day 2, double up, grab another corner in day 3, because you can never have enough DBs in this league. Because remember, you're a Lattimore injury away from saying, okay, Patrick Robinson, P.J. Williams, or Ken Crawley starting. God, no. Don't want that. So I double up on DBs. And I figure out my linebacker problem in free agency, whether that's a reduced deal for Quan Alexander or finding another veteran to pair with Demario Davis. That would be my ideal plan for the Saints.
I like that. More cap space would be fantastic to solve some of these problems too, but I think the Saints are going to be really savvy in the draft. And either way, I think they're going to draft at least one cornerback, and I'm just excited to see who it's going to be because this is a really, really good draft for cornerbacks. It's pretty deep. Definitely a little top heavy too. I think you'll see 3, maybe even 4 corners go in the first round there. A couple in the top 15. So I'm excited. I'm really excited for this draft, regardless.
Yeah, it's going to be a pretty crazy draft for sure. The top 15 definitely going to be hectic to say the least. So, Chris, before we let you go today, man, I got a statement I want to make out to you about the great state of New York where you live. Now, I've been in New York. Let me tell you. The best part about New York is the dollar pizza stands on every corner in the city, right? So I made this conclusion, my personal opinion on this. I don't need to go to a club, all right? Just give me 21s. Let me go to the pizza shops, and I'll show you a good time.
Okay.
That's all I need. That's all. My fat self loves me some New York style pizza.
Well, Alec, you're talking to a guy who probably has pizza about twice a week, so I'm totally agreeing with you. Here's what I'll say, actually. It's so funny. So I guess this is me, since I'm in New York, I guess it's why I view it differently, but when my friends who also live here I'll see them post pictures and like they're eating Papa John's or like Domino's, I'm like, if you live in New York, you can't order that. If you're not in New York, order whatever the hell you want. But when you're in New York, there are a billion options for pizza, and I would go with that over the fast food option. Funny enough, though, when you mentioned the pizza thing, and I don't know if you guys are big Office fans, but
I am. Yes.
Yes. So the first thing that comes to my mind is I got to get me a New York slice, and that will never get old.
Gotta get a New York slice.
Amazing line. Yep. Every time I pass by,
walk into a Sbarro.
Every time I walk by a Sbarro, I gotta say that line.
So the one that he walks by, funny enough, pre-COVID when I was walking to my office, I walk past that one every day. And if I was taking the train with my brother and he's walking to his office, yeah, I'll just like catch him in a second. I'm like, I'll be back. I'm just going to get me a New York slice. And I'll just like mess around with him. But it's a great perk to New York. And I'll actually give a little shout out real quick. It almost extends to Jersey. Almost. I got to be careful here because not every part of Jersey has good pizza. But Hoboken specifically, they know what they're doing with pizza. So I give a little shout out for them too. But yeah, New York, give me some pizza. Forget about the club. I'm going to go in on it. Although we spoke about it with Justin Hardy on Sports Overtime, and it was an honest admission. I've never had pineapple on pizza, and I don't know if it's any good. But
it's delicious.
I've never had it.
I've never had it either. I don't know.
Oh, you guys got to try it. Oh, yeah, it's delicious. Especially if you have, like a Canadian bacon or any sort of other salty meat on there. Mm-hmm. It's fantastic. It's a sweet, salty kind of... Yeah, it's great. It's fantastic.
Interesting.
But I know a lot of people are, like, against it. It's like a religion to be against pineapple on pizza, but I love it. It's great.
Oh, okay. Oh, interesting. Never thought of it like that. Fruit on unhealthy things.
Yeah, just don't make sure the pineapple does not like. I mean, if it's too like juicy, wet. I mean, that's just gonna kind of ruin your pizza regardless because it'll get soggy. But I mean, if it's a little bit of a kind of dried out, still fresh pineapple, fantastic. Can't go wrong.
Okay, then I like where this is going. So, man, I want pizza now. Dang it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now I want.
Nice job.
Hey, but that's okay. I'm a college student. I'm allowed to do these things.
There you go.
It's my what do they say? Freshman 15.
The freshman 15.
But I'm a senior, so yikes. Yeah.
It's the senior 70.
Yeah, whatever you want to call it. Numbers are just numbers.
There you go.
So, Chris, before we let you go, man, two things. One, just give me a name. One offensive, one defensive free agent you see the Saints could sign on a bargain. And then second, if you have anything that's going on in your life, any work you want to promote, any kind of shows, whatever you got going on, just feel free to tell people where they can find all that stuff at.
Oh, man. So, bargain, it's going to be tough. I'm really not 100% sure if there's a guy out there that I'm bargaining with. I'll put him out there because he got cut the other day. I would want Senio Kelemete back on the Saints in that Nick Easton role. Get him in there. He actually responded to a couple of tweets from Saints fans, like laughing about them saying, "Hey, big head, come back." And it would be funny. I think it'd be good for him, especially if they can bring him back, re-sign Hurst. I think you're looking at a really deep O-line, and Russell Wilson wants an O-line, so I think that would help. So as for defense, that's going to be interesting. I don't know necessarily there's a guy out there that I have on my radar. I think, let's say the Saints lose a Marcus Williams. I wouldn't mind them bringing in a Trey Boston. He does have experience in the NFC South. He did play for the Panthers. Maybe if there's a cheaper deal since he just got cut, you look at that. He's not a bad player. The Panthers are just trying to create as much cap space as possible so when they trade half their team to get Deshaun Watson, they can go sign another half to play with him. So I'll go with Trey Boston as a possible guy, but that's in the event they lose Marcus Williams. I wouldn't lose too much sleep over that yet. I really feel, I don't know why, I have a weird confidence that the Saints will bring back Marcus. So we'll see if that happens. But those would be my two picks. As for work stuff, I mean, if people like draft content, just reading like Q&As, learning more about prospects, they can just check out my work on The Spun. I usually retweet it, so they don't have to worry about actually going to the site. They can just go through my Twitter account at Rosvoglou Report, and they'll see the articles through there. But if you're just looking for some fun content, and I had a little message for people back on Sports Overtime, and it's the funniest thing. And we live in an era now where everyone wants to be an NFL insider or crap like that, and it's one of the hardest things ever. And I'm not one. I am strictly a writer/podcaster. But when I get to interview these players and I have fun doing so, I'm obviously going to ask what teams they meet with. So when I put information out, I'll have some people say, "Hey, I'm not so sure you're reliable." And I don't respond back, but it's like, dude, I'm getting it from the player. Like, he's telling me who he's meeting with. So, and I guess the lesson would be, please, Saints fans, it's going to be a crazy offseason. Just be careful who you get your information from. There are some people who I will not name because I refuse to just do that, but they throw shit at the wall. They hope it sticks, and that's not the best strategy. And
I think we know exactly what you're talking about.
And it's just just be careful. It's a hard business, whether writing, podcasting, reporting. Just put in the work, and if something's out there, I'll throw it to you guys. I don't have big scoops. You're not going to get a contract signing from me, but if I put out NFL draft stuff and you want NFL draft stuff, I'll have it there. So if people want to check it out, they can.
Alrighty, that's great stuff. from the one and only, the legend, the stud, if you will, Chris. That's how good you are. I get the one name. Like you're like the Hulk.
Oh, okay. I'll take. See,
Yeah,
I was very satisfied with just being stud, but if you're gonna call me the Hulk too, I'll take that too.
Because the Hulk gets, or like Thor, they get one name and that's all you need to hear. Yeah, yours is Chris, and we know. So
Actually, Saints Twitter should be named the Hulk because they're always angry. These guys, I swear to. You know, when Russell Wilson puts the Saints on a wish list, you can't tell me to be negative. I'm going to be positive because. If I rank the greatest quarterbacks in Saints history, it's Drew Brees, and then it's Russell Wilson saying he might want to play for the Saints. That's the second best quarterback in Saints history. So,
yep.
Just wait until Drew comes back and puts a wrench in all of our plans.
Man,
that's gonna be fun.
Right now.
So that's gonna do it, guys. Chris, again, thank you so much for coming on with us today, dude. Been a pleasure. Hopefully, have you on again sometime soon. And that's to wrap things up, guys. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at SaintsFPC. We'll hopefully have another episode come out later this week. Some more articles coming out for you guys. Thanks for tuning in. See you guys next time.